Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This is Miss Rahma and today I'm going to show you how to teach reading, chapter 14, teaching by principle by Brown. Thank you for the reference. And it brings me to the first point, which is to research on reading and its second language. The first point here is that we have bottom-up and top-down processing, and the second one is SEMA, theory and background knowledge, and then teaching strategic reading. Fourth is extensive reading, and number 5 is reading rate, fluency, and automaticity. And number 6 is focus on the vocabulary, and 7 the role of affect and culture, and then the last one is second language literacy. Alright, we go on to the first point, which is bottom-up and top-down processing. Bottom-up processing recognizing a multiplicity of linguistic signals, for example, letters, morphemes, syllables, words, phrases, grammatical cues, and discourse markers, and the use of the linguistic data processing mechanism to impose some sort of order on these signals. And meanwhile, top-down or conceptually driven processing is drawing on our intelligence and experience to understand a text. Quoted by Nuttall here, compares bottom-up and top-down reading strategy is that bottom-up is like the examining a magnifying glass or microscope. It's like we see something or we see object using glasses or using microscope, so we see the details of an object. And different from the top-down here, that the top-down is like taking an eagle's eyes of a view of a landscape below, so it's more universal and it's more wide. It's wider than the bottom-up process. Alright, go on to the next one is schema theory and background knowledge. The first one is schema theory. How it is the answer of some question addresses to this theory, which is how do readers construct meaning, how do they decide what to hold on to, and having made that decision, and how do they infer a writer's messages. So this schema theory is different between the background knowledge. Sorry. Alright, the content schemata here is include what we know about people, the world, culture, and the universe, while formal schemata consists of our knowledge about language and discourse structure. It is by Grape and Stoller 2014. And then we move on to the background knowledge, which is in Nasaji's view, background knowledge is not pre-stored, but rather it emerges in the context of the task, and it's relatively unstructured as opposed to the highly structured knowledge representation suggested by schema theory, page 453. Okay, it is a bit confusing to digest what the Nasaji's view is, so let me explain it in a simple and short term. Alright, background knowledge here is when you teach your student and your student has different occupation or has different job. For example, you teach your student that is a doctor, and someone is a pilot, and someone is anything else. And we have to talk to the students. In this case, we have to know about their occupation. We have to know the background knowledge, which is what to talk about when your student is a doctor, what to talk about when your student is a pilot or an army. So that is the background knowledge here. Teachers should acknowledge that, and they should masterize what to talk about when the student has different occupation. So that background knowledge is. Alright. Number 3 is teaching strategic reading. Anderson advocated a healthy dose of strategy-based instruction, including a metacognitive strategies of self-planning, monitoring, and evaluating one's own reading processes. Grape 2004 stressed the coordinate use of multiple strategies while students are reading. Iski 2005 reminds us of research in pre-reading, while reading, post-reading, and follow-up strategies for reading. So there are so many strategic reading as mentioned by this expertise, and we are going to see what it actually looks like in the next chapter. Okay, The fourth one is extensive reading. Extensive reading, what it is? Alright, researchers agree that at least for academic purposes, extensive reading is a key to student gains in reading ability, linguistic competence, vocabulary, spelling, and writing. Okay, and the Father Green and Oxford in 1995 found that reading for pleasure and reading without looking up all the unknown words were both highly correlated with our language proficiency. In this one, extensive reading, we can conclude that extensive reading here is done it's out of our pleasure, not all of our academic that we have to see the morphemes, the grammar structure, and blah blah that is correlated to reading, correlated to academic purpose. Okay, and we have also reading rate, fluency, and automaticity. It's stated from Anderson, 2004, page 172, that further notes that fluency is a combination of both reading rate and reading comprehension, and he goes on to suggest strategies of scheming, scanning, predicting, and identifying main ideas as approaches to increasing fluency, or what might also be described as automaticity. Okay, we are going to see what it looks like later on, and on to the sixth one is focus on vocabulary. In recent years, there has been a resurgence of interest in the role of vocabulary knowledge on the acquisition of reading skills, with findings that support a strong relationship that between vocabulary knowledge and letter reading ability. All right, the quote focus on vocabulary, which means in reading we learn a lot about vocabulary. The emphasis of reading strategy is we do reading to focus on vocabulary, because that's how the reading is addressed to, which is to focus and to emphasize vocabulary and memorizing vocabulary. On to the seventh one is the role of affect and culture. Do you sometimes question yourself, why is it in Japan or why is it in Indonesia we have different of literacy level? In Japan, people has higher literacy than in Indonesia. Yeah, one of the answer is that the role of affect and culture, the culture itself and the affect. Okay. The autonomy gained through the learning of reading strategies has been shown to be powerful motivator by Bamford and Day 1998. Not to mention the affect power of reading itself. Similarly, culture plays an active role in motivating and rewarding people for literacy. Culture role in motivating and rewarding for literacy. That is the essential and it's compulsory in a reading strategy. If we have a good culture of reading in some places, in area or region, the people will have more literacy if they feel the award and the affect that motivate them to read. And we cannot simply assume that cognitive factors alone will account for the eventual success of second language readers. Alright, the cognitive factors alone will not account to the eventual success. Cognitive. Sometimes we think that some students are smart enough to read and some students may be a bit less intelligent or a bit lazy to read. It's not something that accounts to the success reading culture itself, but we also have culture, we also have affect that motivates students to read. It's not only the smart student will read more, but the less smart student will read less. It is about the role of affect and culture itself. Okay, on to the eighth one is second language literacy. As second language module and methods continue to apply both bottom-up and top-down models of reading to programs and curricula, one particular challenging focus of effort for researchers and teachers has been literacy level teaching of adult by Devine and Iski 2004, and then skill-based, bottom-up, and strategies based or top-down approaches are both used in adult literacy training. So adult literacy training, adults should also read, that is a must. And the skill-based or bottom-up and top-down here is still used, whether it is for adult or for the children, it is the same way. Okay. On to the next one is the genres of written languages, this written language. So here are the list of the genres. We have genres of written language, notification, reports, editorials, novels, letter, greeting cards, questionnaires, direction, blah blah, and etc. etc. There are many more, and you can read that in the search that we have provided. Okay, next one. The characteristic of written language. The first one we have permanent, and the second one we have processing time, and 3 is distance, 4 is orthography, and 5 is complexity, and 6 is vocabulary, and 7 one is formality. Alright, let's see from the first one. It is permanence. Permanence, written language is permanent. In this, it is different from spoken language. In spoken language, as we speak, it's gone. We speak, and it's only happen in the present when we are speaking only. Speak, 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 and it's gone. Okay, you only hear that when someone's speaking. But in written language, it's different. It is written as long as the paper or the message is still there. We can still see that. Whether in the future and we come back to see the letter again, is still here, and it means permanent. Okay, that's the point of permanence. All right, on to the next one is processing time. Processing time, okay, reading or written language here takes time for us to digest, to read. It is okay to be a slow learners or slow readers, and fast reader is also accepted. And the means of processing time here, when we read, is different from spoken language, because spoken, when someone is speaking, we directly digest what someone is trying to convey, but in reading, it processes more time, and it also processes more time, and it depends on the rate of the readers. Some people read fluently, some people read fast, some people read very slow, and it means the difference of processing time. Okay, and then next one is distance. We have physical and temporal distance. What does it mean? Okay, distance. We may take a look into the sample. For example, someone, as an author, he or she wrote something for the story, and the reader will also read the story, but sometimes reader may have some time to digest and have some difficulties on understanding the writing, and the reader will say, what does it mean? What does it mean? What does these sentences mean? It's different from the spoken language. It's different from the face-to-face. Face-to-face is like when we have something that we think is difficult, we can just say, oh, what do you mean? What does it mean? And the interlocutor or the partner of speaking will directly answer our question. But it's different than the written language. If we buy a novel and we don't know something, oh, what does it mean? We cannot just ask to the author and say, what does this mean? The actual context. We cannot just directly ask and the author will directly answer. So that's the difference between the spoken and the written language, the distance. Okay, next one is number 4, orthography. In written language, we have graphemes. It's different between the spoken language. Spoken language, we have intonation, we have pitch, we have stress, but in orthography, we don't have that. In written language, we don't have that. We only have orthography, which it might be a little complex because the reader should interpret, should think, should imagine with their own imagination. It's different between the spoken, because the spoken, the interlocutor will say in a high intonation, in an expression, in an angry expression, sad expression, but when we read something, we have to imagine ourselves. So that depends on the readers. Okay, number 5 is complexity due to the frequent ambiguity. So there are a lot of ambiguity in reading. So in written language, we have more complexity by using the punctuation and then using the example and many others. So in written language, the sentences or the paragraph will be more complex than the spoken one. And number 6 is vocabulary. As I mentioned before, there are a lot of vocabulary. As we take the example of writing a thesis, writing a paragraph, we cannot just use the same word in one paragraph. We have to use the synonym. So that's how the use of the reading practice here. We have more vocabularies to read and to learn. And the next one is formality. Formality in a written language, we have a lot formality that is more formal than the spoken one, because we can think more, we have more time to write something or type something in a formal way. Alright, that's for the character, and we have now micro and macro for reading comprehension. Micro skills here, we have discriminate among the distinctive graphemes and orthographic patterns of English, and then we have retained chunks of language of different length in short-term memory, and then we have comprehend written language at an efficient rate of speed to suit the purpose, and we have recognized a core of word and interpret word order pattern and their significance. The next one is recognize grammatical word classes, for example, noun, verbs, adjective, blah blah. And then we have the system, we have pattern and rules and elliptical forms. And the last one is to recognize that a particle meaning may be expressed in different grammatical forms. Okay, on to the macro skill. Macro skill here is to recognize cohesive devices in written discourse and their role in signaling the relationship between and among clauses. And then we have recognized the rhetorical forms of written discourse and their significance for interpretation, and recognize the communicative function of written text according to form and purpose. And we have infer context that is not explicit by using background knowledge. And we have infer links and connection between events, idea, etc. to deduce causes and effect and detect such relation as main idea, supporting idea, new information, giving information, and generalization and exemplification. Alright, the next one is to distinguish between literal and implied meaning. Literal and implied meaning, they have the different meaning, which is the literal, for example, is that when we have "It's a good day, isn't it? It's a good day, isn't it?" In literal meaning, we are asking someone to answer whether it is a good day or not. It's a good day, isn't it? The answer could be yes, it is, or no, it's not. But the implied meaning would be it's a good day, isn't it? Is that we try to start a communication, we try to start a discourse that we may follow it with several sentences or several feedback from the partner of speaking. Okay, and then detect culturally specific reference and interpret them in the context of appropriate cultural schemata. And the last one is to develop and use better reading strategies such as scanning and skimming, detecting discourse markers, guessing the meaning of words from context, and activating schemata for the interpretation of text. Alright. On to the next one is strategies for reading comprehension. There are some strategies. The first one is to identify the purpose of reading. And the second one is the use of graphemic rules and pattern to aid in bottom-up decoding. For example, we have vowels here, and vowels are different. So we provide students with some explanation about vowels. There are short vowels and long vowels. For example, short vowel in VC pattern is bad, him, like, wish, etc. And the long one is late, time, bite, and etc. Okay. And the next one is the use of efficient silent reading techniques for improving fluency. Okay, silent reading is also used in the class to improve the fluency in reading. And then we have skim the text for the main idea. Skimming. What does it mean by skimming is that we have, for example, when we have a paragraph here and we try to find the main topic, that is the use of skimming to find the main topic and find the ideas. It's just a fast reading. And then we have scanning. The difference between scanning and skimming is that scanning is used to find the specific information. For example, we read a manual and we try to find which manual, which one that we need to see. So we use scanning to find the specific information that we need. Okay, we have used semantic mapping or clustering. It is to make a mind map. For example, semantic mapping or grouping ideas into meaningful clusters help the readers to provide some order to the chaos. So semantic mapping here is to help students to understand more about what a paragraph or what a written language is trying to convey to them. And the next one is guess when you are uncertain. We can guess the meaning, we can guess grammatical structure, and etc. Sometimes we have a confusion when we read something, and the first one you need to do is to guess it, to guess the meaning, to guess what the content, to guess the grammar structure. Yeah, the first one is to guess. There are some efforts that you might need to see the explanation, the real explanation on some sources, or to open the dictionary, but the first one you need to do is to guess it. And the next one is analyze vocabulary. We have prefixes, suffixes, root, grammatical context, semantic context, etc. Okay, the analyzing is also needed while you are reading. And then distinguish between literal and implied meaning, as I mentioned before. And then capitalize on discourse marker to process relationship. A clear comprehension of such marker can greatly enhance learners' reading efficiency. Markers here is needed to help students improving or understanding a certain reading. Alright, then we got types of classroom reading performance. We have oral and silent reading, and we have intensive and extensive reading. Let's see. The first one is oral and silent reading. We have some advantages and disadvantages of oral reading here. The first advantage is oral reading that serves as an evaluating check on bottom-up and processing skill. And the second one is it doubles a pronunciation check. And then it adds some extra student participation if you want to highlight a certain short segment of reading passage. Okay, that's obvious. And the disadvantages of oral reading here are oral reading is not very authentic language activity, and while one student is reading, others can easily lose attention, or if they are reading in turns, be silently rehearsing the next paragraph. Yeah, that's the problem. When one student reading and the next turn will be, oh it's gonna be my turn, I have to practice this one. So the student will lose the concentration to the one who is reading. And then number 3 is it may have the outward appearance of student participation when in reality it is mere recitation. Alright, and then we have also silent reading here. Silent reading is essential in order for learners to gain any speed in the process. For extensive reading, speed is usually an important factor. For intensive reading, learning to read silently may be less important, but still remains an ultimate goal. Okay, on to the next one is intensive and extensive reading. Intensive reading here is usually a classroom-oriented activity in which students focus on the linguistic or semantic details or passage. Intensive reading often calls students' attention to grammatical forms, discourse markers, and other surface structure details for the purpose of understanding literal meaning, implication, rhetorical relationship, and the like. And then we have also extensive reading, which is carried out to achieve a general understanding of usually somewhat longer text, for example, books, long articles, essays. Most extensive reading is performed outside class time. Pleasure reading is often extensive. So the difference between intensive and extensive here, the most obvious one is that intensive is used for academic purpose, that we see the structure, implication, and we seen the relationship between one sentence to the other, the grammar forms, but it's different from extensive. The extensive one is used to give people a pleasure when they are reading something. And then we have principle for teaching reading skills. The first one is an integrated course include focus on reading skill. The second one is offer reading on relevant, interesting, and motivating topics. Yes, the second one. The point of the second one here is that offer reading on relevant, interesting, motivating topics. So we have to provide students with a good reading which is relevant or interesting to them, that motivate them to read the topics. And we have to recognize what the student like to read. And the third one is balance authenticity and readability in choosing text. Okay, there are some consideration why and what to choose in the text that we are going to ask students to read. And then the fourth one is encourage the development of reading strategies. And then number 5 is include both bottom-up and top-down techniques. And the sixth one is follow the SQ3R, which is sequence. Survey, question, read, recite, and review. And the seventh one is to design pre-reading, while reading, and post-reading phases. Okay, design pre-reading. Pre-reading is that when you motivate students to read, why they need to read, and you have to elaborate on the topic that they are going to read. And then while reading, sometimes while reading you ask students for clarification, what it means, how far have you got, and you just need to see that the student comprehend the written language correctly. And the post-reading phases here is that when you ask the student what the reading is about, and we can also ask the student to summarize what they have read. And then number 8 is building ongoing informal assessment into your techniques. Ongoing assessment is informal assessment, for example, to summarize, to retell what they have read, and to draw the conclusion, for example. Alright, for number 3 and number 8 here, I got some pointer that we might need to consider. And the first one is choosing what we need to give for students to read. Newtel 1996 offered 3 criteria for choosing reading text for students. The first one is suitability of content. Material that students will find interesting, enjoyable, challenging, appropriate, and for their need goals in learning English. And then the second one is exploitability. A text that facilitates the achievement of certain language and content goal that is exploitable for instructional tasks and techniques, and that is integratable with other skills, for example, listening, speaking, and writing. So reading here should integrate and should relate to the next skill, which is listening, speaking, and writing. And then this one, it means that the reading text that we are giving to the student should integrate and flexible to be used in listening and speaking and writing skill. Alright, and then the third one is readability, a text with lexical and structural difficulty that will challenge students without overwhelming them. Okay, and then the second one is about assessing, informal assessing for the student. Offer responses that indicate comprehension are doing, choosing, transferring, answering, condensing, extending, duplicating, and modeling and conversing. There are some of a explanation about these points, as you may see in the reference. And then we got also assessing reading. Assessing reading here, we got some points. The first one is perceptive reading or recognition of symbols, letter, or word. It could be done by reading aloud, copying, multiple choice recognition, and picture code identification. And then we have selective reading, focus on morphology, grammar, and lexicon. It could be done by multiple choice grammar, vocabulary tasks, contextual multiple choice, sentence level closed tasks, and etc. And then we have also interactive reading. It can be done by discourse level closed task, reading and comprehension question, short answer, and responding to chat, etc. And then we have extensive reading here. We can have skimming, summarizing, responding, reading through short essays, note-taking, marginal notes, highlighting, or outlining. Alright, and it brings me to the end of this presentation. That's all for me. Do you have any question?
Okay, how are you, Miss Rahma?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, Miss Rahma, as a teacher, I'm sure that you have ever met a student with a low motivation for reading. So how do you deal with that?
Okay, the first one, I will ask them about what they like to read, about their interest, their hobby, because it gives them motivation. Let's see, we are seeking a motivation for a student. What motivates them? It is to talk about what they like, it is to ask how their day was going, and any other motivation that will motivate the student. Not all about the reading, what do you like to read, what do you like to read? So we provide them with what they like. Okay, that's my answer.
Alright, hi Miss Rahma.
Hi.
So you mentioned that about the culture of the students. So how to deal with that culture? So you said that the lazy students, they will less reading than the student that read a lot of books.
Okay, we have to set a new habit. Yeah, culture here is built by a habit. If we create new habit, new environment, new atmosphere to the student, it will motivate them. Of course, it takes time, but it is our effort to set new habit, to set new culture for the student to be motivated to read. Okay, that's my answer.
Okay, hi Miss Rahma.
Hi.
Okay, I have an experience about young learners for young about the reading. Yeah. So I observe young learner, for example, pre-K students, when they read storybook, and we know that they cannot read, right? So they only see the pictures. After they see the content of the storybook, and I give them some question. So I ask them, who is that on the storybook, and what does the character do, for example, and then what the book tells about, like that. So yes, actually they can answer it very well based on the they know about the content of the book by seeing the picture. So my question is, what my student did or done before, like, is that activity part of reading or not? Okay, thank you.
Yes, the part when you say about pictures, it motivates the student. As it mentioned before, we have to provide an interesting book, a book that will appeal their student motivation. We have to motivate students first by showing the picture, asking them, and that's how we build the motivation. Yeah, it is part of the reading.
Ms. Rahma, it's very interesting, yeah, that we need to build new habits for students, especially here in Indonesia, to read more. My question is dealing with the reading texts or the reading materials that we can provide in the classroom. Most of the time, we use the material or the text from the textbooks that we use, mostly because in my classes, when I try to find the materials online, for example, because I really wanted to bring the materials as close as possible to the student's life. But the problem is the reading texts that I found online mostly were too difficult for the students. The vocabularies, the structures. In that kind of situation, what do you suggest, or what does this book suggest? And do we have to use the reading text from the course book that is more suitable for them, or what do we do? Thank you.
We can combine. We have to try first. If the text from the course book is suitable for the student, we have to try it first. There's no need to avoid. And then if the text from the internet is suitable for the student, we can also use it. Let's try. We don't know. We have expected that it could be difficult for the student, but we might not see the result of it. We have to try first and see the result. Give the student a challenge, because why not? If it's too difficult we think it's difficult for the student, why not improving? We can improve. As a teacher, we have the ability to improve a text, and we can also learn and how to simplify and how to modify a text. Thank you.
How do you see the difference between reading in the first language and reading in the foreign language, like what our students are doing? They are reading in the foreign language, English in this case.
Okay, for the first language, I see that students are trying to see the content, to try to digest the meaning, the content of the text, but it's different in the second language, because in second language, students have to do twice of the first one. Twice, which means to understand what the sentences is saying, the meaning of the sentence, and is trying to digest the context of the text itself. So the student has to do a double job here, which is to, some students still need to translate the reading first because they don't know the meaning in Indonesia or in English, but they also need to see the grammar, the correlation between this sentence and this sentence, so they can see the meaning of the content. The difference is the job and the effort of the reading. Thank you, that's my presentation. We'll see you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.